January 21st. That was a quorum being present, all five. First item of business, make a motion to accept the October 14, 2020 meeting minutes. Those are the ones out in the tennis court.
Second.
One thing, I sent Kate an email, I'm not sure, just with some comments. I don't know if Kate's on, if she could comment
she's
on it.
I'm on, Sarah, but I didn't get a chance to read them, your comments, so we can put it on next time.
Okay.
That's fine.
All right, we'll hold those.
And hold the 7th, hold January 7th also, Jack.
Why?
I didn't get them sent out.
Oh my God. Okay.
Oh my God.
All right. First item, we'll go right down the A&R. We're not doing it tonight because we didn't get it into the office until Tuesday. And it was just a paper copy, so none of us could actually see it. And I guess the PDF that could be sent out to all of us didn't come until today. So we really couldn't do it. And the fact that Kyle likes to look at it too. And no, Mr. Glosser, once again, at the last minute. So we have enough time to pick that up at the next hearing. Okay, so we cross that one out. Next one, master plan. Representative Katie asked for it. I don't see anybody else that said anything, so I'll make a motion to nominate.
Mr. Chairman, could I ask a question?
Yeah.
So that just as a point of clarification, so this is our planning board designee to review the RFP, is that correct?
No, it's to be part of the whole master plan. Yeah.
Because what was sent out was all about reviewing the RFP.
Yeah, this is going to be the master plan committee.
Okay, because when I inquired, what I heard was that this request is for a planning board member to review the proposals, and then later there would be a planning board and other boards to actually be on the master plan committee.
So I took it as, yes, reviewing, but also from the last master plan, when it was done, the entire planning board was involved, but there were representatives that were there as part of the committee. So like if not all of the planning board was, I took it as they were, when I participated, last time I participated as at open meetings as a resident. And from being at those meetings, it appeared that many times all of the planning board was present, but sometimes not everyone could be there. So there was a representative on the committee that was supposed to be involved, be active, report back, so that there was open communication. That's the way I took it, as I was a representative. But I am glad to do the RFP, and if they want to do representatives later, I'm also interested in being involved.
Yeah, I mean, I think Katie would be an excellent choice, you know, given your background and everything, to you know, represent the planning board at the RFP. If we're voting on who wants to be on the master plan committee, then I would be interested. So I would prefer that.
Should we go back and ask Patrick to clarify?
Well, I'm looking at the email. It says we've specified the proposals that will be reviewed by the selection committee to consist of a designee from planning board as well as, you know, others. Let me know who the planning board would like to designate as an individual to participate in this process. So responses to review the RFP that the town put out to update the master plan and to evaluate the 2 proposals received.
Yeah, and Jack, you can, as the only planning board member that's on now that was on when they did the last master plan. Do you remember? I was under the impression it wasn't a limited participation, am I correct?
No, there was a committee of different people. Fosberg was one, and I think Nancy was the other. They were on it. But it wasn't the whole board. It's supposed to be a committee. Can't have a whole board as a committee because you'd always be running into, all the issues with open meeting laws and all that. So it was, last time it was just 2 members. And I think the time before that, the same, no more than 2. So that's how it went.
Yeah, so I mean, if I'm voting on, who to, handle the RFPs, I would definitely support Katie.
All right, we're voting on what's in front of us from Pat Shields. How's that?
Okay.
All right, so I made a motion. Do I have a second?
Second?
All right, I have a second. All those in favor? Sarah?
Aye.
Phil?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Kate?
Can I vote?
Yeah.
Aye.
Not for yourself, though. Me? Jack? Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
All right. Now, while we're on a roll with you, Kate, you wanted to talk about procedures, right?
Well, I do, and I think maybe my email covered it, but since we're on Zoom, I'll, I guess, quickly go through my email.
Well, I think everybody wants to chime in what they like, or I should say, what we don't like.
Should I explain those so that if anyone's watching, they can understand what we're talking about?
Well, explain how this came about.
So when we had discussed way back when we were still having in-person meetings, going to Zoom, one of the concerns I had was that everyone's equally represented and has access to everything equally. And it was a real concern for me because not everyone has the same capabilities electronically and managing, looking at the plans and all of that. And when you go to a meeting in person, it's presented, and you can actively ask questions. I was worried about people being able to know how to ask questions and things like that. So I myself a little electronically challenged. So at our last meeting, we had a situation where it brought this back up for me. And what it was it was a preliminary hearing. And in my eyes, the preliminaries aren't as critical because usually when they come back, they are drastically changed. And we are not looking at what we look at the preliminary hearing as far as the specifics. In general, we are. So the engineer was unable to access, he wasn't at his own computer, he was unable to access the most current set of plans. So he said, well, we'll use this one. I don't think it was intentional, but it was a situation of we weren't all on the same page. If there were people at home, they were looking at an old plan. If you didn't have the other one handy that we had received, you were looking at the old plan. So I think it's a situation of it's critical that we all are looking at the same thing. We all have the most current version because that's what we're talking about. That's what we're voting on. We're not voting on the old stuff. So I also think the general public should be seeing the most recent so that they know what's being talked about. And as a result of what happened, I didn't say anything because it was a preliminary, but I think it's something we should talk about ahead of time. I think we should make a plan for how we're going to handle it. I have suggestions. I think it should, now that we're taking PDFs and all of these things, it brings to light more than ever the deadlines. I think that we need to hold everyone to the same standard. I think it's only fair to the residents. So in my opinion, the way I looked at it is if someone shows up, and whether it be their unpreparedness or whether it be electronic issues, if they cannot display and discuss the most current version, or if they didn't get it in, or whatever the case may be, it should be continued to the next hearing. I'm not talking continuing them indefinitely. I'm not trying to make a hardship. I don't want a hardship for the people at home either. So I want to make it fair and equitable for everyone. And I think if there's an issue and it can't be presented or accessed, it should be halted, not continue discussing it, and move it to the next meeting. That's it.
Self, I move papers. All right, anyone else have any comments?
Jack, did you say something? Because I couldn't hear it.
Why is it not doing?
We lost you again, I think.
How's that?
Yep.
Hear you.
Yeah, but the screen's on one side of the room and the keyboard's on the other, so. You need duct tape? All right, I'll go around. John, what are your feelings, and what do you see that you're just getting tired of, or you think we gotta straighten out a little?
Well, one point, now that it's more of an electronic visual aspect and not so much a paper hands-on item. I know in the past, if I had questions on a planning board issue or a zoning issue, I would be coming into the office, looking through the folder and looking at the actual submissions and looking at any plans. So I'd be able to look at them ahead of time, determine if there's questions, and have them ready to ask at the meeting. If we're gonna have no direct contact for the public, basically, we may need to do something similar to the 40B. What they're doing with 40Bs now is create a folder for any of these larger projects and put everything in it in an electronic format so that they can go to this folder, look at any plans that have been submitted, comments from the town boards, and the public can look at this and have questions ready for the board at the time it comes up, rather than having to wait and see what screens the applicant may have ready to present. But there may be other issues that aren't as easy or take more time to investigate fully.
All right, I found ours today, John, because I had to call Kate, where's the PDFs? And it's in the left-hand column, which I wouldn't have gone to. It's where it talks about town maps and GIS. And she did have everything for the hearing tonight. We didn't have his comments, but a lot of the comments, I think we got Kyle's this afternoon, and I'm not sure, Fire Chief or Paul Barry's just recently, but yeah, it's on there. And when I was talking to Kate, you might want to move it to the middle so you can see it like they do on the zoning board. On the left side on our blue page, it looks kind of like official. If we move it over to right, yes, that's what we're going to try to do and have it all up there for that. So, and we're almost there. So,
Just
anything
as
else?
we get it figured out, we'll be able to go live again.
I'm set.
All right, anything else, John?
No, I'm set.
Okay, right across, Phil?
So I welcome this proposal and I first of all, I want to just say that I find the PDFs a lot more usable. Not only are they more accessible to us, but also for looking at the plans, you can draw in and enlarge the screen so you can actually see everything a lot easier. I think as far as, Katie's proposal in regard to the public, I think it's good if we let everybody know that that's what, to any submitters of a project, that's what we're expecting. The only caveat would be we wouldn't want to be postponing a plan if we're going to run into a deadline issue because we're exceeding the amount of time we have to review the project. So I think it's a good suggestion. I think I want to thank Kate for putting up more things up on the web because that was very helpful. And I think if we could do that with everything and have the developers or have any submitters submit electronic materials, PDFs, and then as Katie said, we need to make sure that when people present things, they're presenting what's the current plan. So I think so I'm supportive of it.
Okay. Sarah?
Yeah, I'm also, I think it's, you know, a good suggestion, a relevant suggestion. I support it. On what John had brought up, I think maybe Jack or Kate, you could answer, but the plans should still be available in the office, should a member of the public want to come in and review them, correct, or no?
No, the plan, we haven't changed anything in that. It's in our requirements, the number says, I think it's 9. That still stays the same. This is just to enhance because we're gonna do it on Zoom. That's all this is for. And that-
Right, but John had said like normally he would go into the office and now he can't. I mean, I've gone, you know, in the middle of COVID and reviewed things.
Well, I mean, that's an individual's choice now, you know, whether you
Okay.
want to be exposed to it on that. But this PDF stuff is supposed to help make life easier for everybody. And what I want to say about that is when you read and hear about all this COVID stuff, is it in our rules? No, but neither is COVID.
Yeah.
But from what I've heard is if you're making an attempt to do something to deal with this and we have an applicant that says, I don't want to do it, my opinion is, you don't want to do it? All right, buddy, done. And go down to court and try to, you know, appeal that one that you didn't want to give a PDF during all these Zoom meetings. It's very simple, as we all know, is all your drawings now are done on PDFs. Everything is off a computer that you save to a PDF. So we're not asking anybody to do anything that they already have. Chances are you're going to any engineer's office or any law office, it's all on computer files. So what we're asking is not that much. It's just to help things, so.
Yeah, so I would be in support if during our meeting, any applicant did not have the appropriate electronic forms to display for the public during our meeting, then we should advise the applicant that we need to continue. We need to stop and continue. So I would be in support of that.
Okay. We kind of all know this developed on that preliminary couple of weeks ago. One thing about preliminary is that whether you say yes or no, it has no effect. It's kind of weird, but even if you let it go, the vote doesn't mean anything. But I happen to know the person, the owner of it, and I'll say it here, because I don't care whether he's watching or not, not the owner, but I try to tell him, don't come back whining to me that, oh, the planning board's prolonging this for me, you guys are tough. No, what I said is, you better get on your engineer to get his rearing gear and make sure he does it right, because we've experienced this in the past, and they always try to blame all of us when in fact it's them. So I just cautioned him, I told him to watch the tape and see what you got. And that's one way is the guy that's paying the bill is going to be the guy with the bigger clout than what we have. So I just want to mention that in case you ever heard it. The other thing we have is we have cuteness, as I'll call it, is people dropping off plans like the Wednesday before Christmas Eve when Kate's not there. Well, as far as I'm concerned, if you drop them off with nobody, unless they clocked them in at the clerk, which they're supposed to do, clock doesn't start ticking until at least somebody finds it. I think Kate, on one instance last time, didn't find it until the following Tuesday, and it'd make the 14 days. And just so everybody understands the 14-day rule, that was developed a long time ago, where what you'd have is you'd have an applicant and would continue it, and you want to be on the next hearing. But you know, in 2 weeks, he's not going to get all the things changed and back to us so they can review. And what we were doing is wasting a lot of hearing time. So it made it easier to jump to the hearing after, and that gave enough time. And that's basically why we do it. But sometimes people want to do that too. No, it's a matter of sending these in, giving them in on time so we can read them and everybody has a chance to look at them. So that's one of the things we also have that sometimes you don't hear about is stuff getting dropped at the last minute on desks or whatever. And they don't seem to want to go down the town clerk and get them stamped, which they're supposed to, especially initial. That's a law. So I think everybody's on board. So if you see anything in the future coming and you don't like it, you think it's not done, please speak up. You know, not that I don't mind being the bad guy, but sometimes it's nice to have someone else point out to them that, and you may have something that I don't seem to think is a big deal and you do, and it should be brought up. So I'd hope in the future, anybody finds something that they're not doing it right, or what you think is outside of what they should be doing, I'd ask, please bring it up so we can get it done correctly. And we all know, if they don't do it correctly now, it's just gonna prolong. We'll have another hearing for just because they didn't do it right. So, other than that,
Sorry to interrupt before you finish and go on. I have one thing. Could we disclose something at the beginning of every Zoom meeting?
disclose what?
Just like a 2-sentence, as you know, we need the most current submissions, so if you don't have them ready, please let us know, or something like that, just so that it's blatant and it's not, the engineers we see all the time, they'll catch on quickly, but if we have an engineer who's not before us,
Yeah,
so that we don't get into it, is what I'm trying to say, so we don't spend time getting into it and then pulling the plug.
well, that kind of happened last time with one particular subdivision that was a little bit subtle, and he kind of pushed it. I had it in on time, and you want to get in a battle? I'll get in a battle with anybody. It's like, no, you're the one who dropped them on the day before Christmas Eve at 2 p.m. when no one was there. But he kind of like backed off, and we ended up doing the plans that we had timely. I don't know, you probably didn't even notice that on that particular one. But yeah, if we get new plans, no, and it's funny, Kate, is I don't know how much, I can't remember how much you've seen it, but we've had guys in the past, here's a new set of plans for you, let's talk about them. Nope. Well, we got changes here. Well, nope. Just tell you what, buddy, at the end of the hearing, give them to us, then we'll accept them, and then we'll go on from there. That's been down the past. It hasn't been as blatant, but yeah, that's one way we'll just stop them too. All right. So as long as everybody, we're all on board, trying to make this, follow the rules, what we got to do. And also with the COVID thing, PDFs are very important for all of us to see. Before I get off it, it's kind of like, we're kind of on the same subject about PDFs and everything else. Signing, we kind of talked about that the other night. What is, if we have to sign something? Because that's part of this whole deal, like Katie's talking about, is we have to sign plans. I know some people last time indicated about A&Rs, they didn't mind, but if we have to sign plans, legally, we only have to have on subdivisions a majority, 3 people. Doesn't have to be all 5. So what is everybody's view? If you want to sign them, you can come in. Is that an issue with anybody?
I have no trouble getting in to sign it.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, can we discuss this without it being on the agenda?
Well, it's all part of Katie's thing on
Procedure.
how we procedures and all this, because it's what we're doing with COVID. So,
I see.
let's put it this way. I work the opposite way. If it need be, and 2 of you couldn't make it, I can make it. But if does anybody else have a problem getting in there if they had to do it?
No problem.
Okay. Phil, you all set if you had to?
I am. I'm coming to sign something.
Okay, all right. Sarah, same thing. If you can get there, you can get there. All right. So, I like the idea that people are going to sign them. I think that's better. So, all right. And I think, since there's no clock here, we're up to our meeting time.
7:24 according to my laptop.
Yeah, my laptop doesn't say that. I don't even got a freaking camera on this for some reason. But, all right, so we'll move on to our hearing. Okay, and I want to open a hearing for site plan review on 1363 and 1391 Main Street, case 2100. And it is seeking site plan under 13.7. And bear with me, that a 3-story mixed use, 1st-story commercial, 2nd, 3rd residential, total of 16 units. And this was one that was submitted back, it's been going on for a while, but we were on that freeze. And so I have the hearing opened. And with that being said, I'll take a little cue from what Kate talked about a second ago in advising plans, okay? And I know the applicant is, he's sitting there, Saeed, is it?
Yes.
Okay, all right, want to make sure. And your engineer?
Kevin Maria Pell's there, and my architect, Lucio Trabucco, is also joining
Okay.
us. And another one of our engineers is on as well, Frederick King.
Okay, so if we want to do things right and mention right out front, this would be the perfect time to do it. All right, and we got a bunch of bouncing balls here. So I want you guys to understand what's up, all right? Conservation approved this on the 15th of April. I believe we have that. The zoning board, and you all have a decision from our end, the planning board. The zoning board approved this back in July 15th. And they did it based upon the special permit. So with that being said, now here's some of the issues that are coming up so we all understand going forward is the Concom, we're dealing with plans in April. The ZBA decision, and Saeed, you're probably gonna have to take this up with the ZBA. I went through the decision. They did not list the date of the original and the final set. I can't find it anywhere. It is mentioned, the way their decision is written is it has the meeting minutes in there. And the only reference I could find is something that was submitted May 18th, okay? So, what you should have in any town is everybody should be working off the same set of plans, the same date, I should say. I'm sure your engineer understands that. So right now, the best I can say is you have, the last set of plans the zoning board saw was on May 18th. Concom probably before that. You may want to take it back to both of them to make sure that they're all set with that, because what we have now is we have new plans. The site plan is dated on June 15th. The fire truck plan is dated June 15th. The landscape was dated April 3rd. Floor plan was dated back in January 4th of 20. And you have a 3D with no date on it, okay? Now, my interpretation of everything that goes here is conservation and zoning don't necessarily need the 3D. My suggestion is you put a date on that because everything's gonna have to be referenced. And the existing conditions, which really just shows you, but that was back on January 2nd, so, you know, existing conditions. And also, you want to check with conservation because they do stormwater management. And your stormwater management submission was dated April 15th. And it said approved on the 15th of April by Concom. I don't know if they did it that night. So my suggestion to you, Saeed, and your engineer is to go talk to Concom, see what's up with that, what you might have to do, and the zoning board. Because what's gonna happen is all these will go down to the building inspector. And when he looks at one set of plans here, one date here, one date there, one date there, he might just send it back, says, I can't interpret these, okay? Do I think it's a big issue? No, I think it's more of a cleanup issue, but I'm just trying to help you so that if you get everything approved, you don't want to be stuck down there with 3 different sets of plans from 3 different boards with 3 different dates, okay? Do you understand that whole process?
Oh, yeah, I sure do. The whole challenge was just the COVID and delays and top of delays. And I mean, the last edits we did, I'm not sure if the dates were reflected on the plans, but the last edits we really did were mid-June because there were some changes to the original plans. But the ones, I see where you're coming from. We're going to have to go back and make sure that they, don't have issues with the dates. It's a very good point. But I do believe conservation approved plans in June. So it might be just clerical errors. We'll have to take a look at those. But the plans you see today are the plans that we ended off our hearings with the zoning board and conservation commission. So it shouldn't be a surprise to them as far as the plans and what we have out there. But the dates, yeah, we can definitely take a look at that. That's a very good point.
Yeah, you just don't want to end up in the building department. He goes, huh?
Exactly.
Now, this is for my board. I think you guys understand it from your end because you went through it with the zoning board. The zoning board, their decision has a lot of references to stuff that we cover. And also for you, Saeed, your side is they may have ruled on things or they want things a certain way. Hopefully we all see it like that. But I would ask, as we go through our board, I'm talking to the applicants now, if they point out something they like or don't like or question it, and if it's going to be different or conflicts, you might want to point out what the zoning board has indicated, whether it's better, worse, or whatever, because you don't want to end up where, we'll take for instance, we like 22 parking places and they said they like only 19. You don't want to get in those conflicts, so there has to be something explained from your side to our board what the reasoning was. I mean, we'll all try to be reasonable, but we have something already in motion that was already voted, and I don't want to go down the road where you certainly don't want one decision from us that says, 10 units and one from them 60. You know what's going to happen. So I'd ask, as we go through on our comments, us and, well, even the public naturally, and also we've got letters from boards in town on, what they seek. So just make sure that if you find something, please point that out so we can have that discussion. So I don't know if that makes all sense. I hope it does.
No, it definitely does. I mean, we want to make sure there's no contradictions also. There is a long list of conditions for the special permit that we got granted back in July. So as we go along in our discussions with the planning board, if anything does come up and it's already been discussed with the zoning board, I'll make sure that you guys know about it. Just so that we're not redundant with the planning board, given the same, well, if it's the same condition, it's not an issue, but just make sure that they're not contradicting.
Correct.
Condition.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right.
So I'm on board with you on that.
Okay. I think by saying it out front, probably good advice from Kate. Now everybody knows up front what we're dealing with rather than down the road. So the hearing is open. As I always say, is the hearing will allow the applicant and whoever's presenting to present. After that is they've done their presentation, I'll read any and all comments that I have, particularly from the town boards. Then after that, we'll open it up to each member of the planning board. And at the very end, we ask anybody who's watching on Zoom, if they have any questions or comments, to please wait till the end. We'll call on you without a problem, but just wait to the end, because most of the time you find a lot of your questions you have at the start are probably answered by the end. So with that being said, the applicant would ask you to open and do your presentation.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Sayed Halabi. I'm the applicant. Just to give you a quick recap, we have got approved for a special permit for the second and third story of this project for residential units through the zoning board. The overall project includes a first floor commercial space, second floor is residential, and the third floor is residential units. So we have been approved for the special permit. We have approvals from COMCOM, and now we're here before you, and I appreciate you going through the trouble of Zoom. It's not easy at all for any of us, but I really appreciate it. So without further ado, I'm joined by my engineer, Kevin, and my architect, Lucio. Kevin is controlling the slides. We're just gonna go through a quick presentation just to give you an overall idea of what we're doing. So we're gonna start with our 3D imagery, just to give you an idea of where we're gonna be going after I show what's existing. Then I'm gonna be turning it over to my engineer, who will take over for the last 4 slides. If there's any questions for me, my engineer or architect, we're all on board. We'll answer any questions at the end. So without further ado, if I can go to the next slide, please, Kevin.
Okay, so everybody can see the screen, just to confirm?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thanks.
So this is the locus. This is where we are. The address is 1363 to 1391 Main Street. Several numbers for the property. It's just south of the center of town. We're in the business zone, the B zone. Next slide, please. So this is just a zoomed in slide. You can see on the right side there is the car wash that's closed down right now, and then to the left is the floral shop and the Dunkin' Donuts. Across the street is the Bristol Square, Bristol Cafe. So this is on Route 1A. Again, this is the business zone. If you could go to the next slide, please. So this is a street view of what we see today at the location. This is from the left side. Go to the next slide, please. And this is from the right side. What exists at the property right now is the first floor is a pizza shop, and then there are residential units above, and then there is a car dealership in the back. And I believe it has a residential unit on the top. And there's also a billboard on the property, and we will discuss that shortly. That did come up during our zoning hearings, and we have a plan for that, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But that's what we have there right now. So this is what we are proposing. Next slide, please. So this is what we're proposing. Again, to reiterate, that's the first floor is commercial. That's the by right use for this property being in the business zone. And what required this special permit was the second and third story residential units. And as we go later on throughout this presentation, I'll show you the details of those apartments and our layout and so forth. So this image is from the right side. The billboard is technically on that right-hand side of the screen. We drive in from this angle. This is the existing curb cut. There's no new curb cuts. We're just refining them and cleaning them up, and you'll see that at the end with our site plan. Next slide, please. So this is from the left side, left angle. The garage door right there goes into an underground parking garage, and I'll show you the layout shortly of that. Next slide, please. And this is, again, another angle from the left-hand side. There's going to be several pictures here. I just really want you guys to get a good idea of what we're proposing. And next slide, please. So this is as you're driving into the driveway to the right, and we're proposing pretty much the commercial parking space would be above ground surface parking. And that's the image of you driving into this property if you're visiting the stores or so forth. Next slide, please. This is from the car wash side. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with it, but there's like vacuums there and stuff. If you're standing there, that's what you would see. So this is from the car wash angle. The building is somewhat of an L shape, and it was a bigger L when we first started with the zoning board, and we refined it and reduced the size of the building through that process. So it has a slight corner, and you'll see that in the next images. Next slide, please. So this is from the back end of the car wash area looking at this property. Next slide, please. This is the far back end corner. You can see a fire engine turnaround there. We'll discuss that later on, and that was part of our zoning process as well. As you stated, Mr. Chairman, we're just trying to bring about all the things that we discussed in the zoning board. So that's something that we will discuss later on in this presentation. But that is the fire engine turnaround. And the images that you see are pretty much what we're going to get. They're as close to the reality as we can get. Next slide, please. This is from the Dunkin' Donuts side, back end of our building. There is about a 6-foot side setback. That's the required minimum setback. And we added all the shrubbery there. That was requested by the zoning board. So we added all that shrubbery in to soften the look of the first story there. And next slide, please. So this is the front of the building, dead center, with the walkways. Next slide, please. This is from the Dunkin' Donuts side. If you're going into Dunkin' Donuts to grab a coffee, that's what you would see. We added in those storefront windows through the zoning process. That was pretty much a stone wall, but we added those in per their request, again, to soften it up a little. Next slide. So this is back into the surface parking, and that's the corner that I was talking about on the left. It's an L shape. The left door right there that you guys are looking at, right inside the corner, the glass door, that door right there, that leads you into the residential lobby. There's an elevator there, it'll take you up to the second and third floor or the underground parking. So that's just, whoever accesses that door would just be going into the residential area. So when I show you the layout, you'll see that they are separated. The residential has their end, and the commercial has its end. And then that's the handicap parking space right there. I believe that's van accessible. Next slide, please. So this is the look that you would have going out into the out of the balcony door for one of the front units. I believe this is one of our 2-bedroom units right here. Next slide, please. And again, this is from the car wash side. We just did a step back so you can see what kind of buffering we have there with the grass and so forth. Next slide. And again, this is coming in. Next slide. Okay, so now this is the parking floor. We'll start with that. This is the underground garage. We have 32 parking spaces there. That's required for the 16 residential units. We're required to have 2 parking spaces per residential unit. So if you want to think of it as, residential parking, it's down there. So 32 parking spaces. We have handicap accessible parking spaces located right there in the inside part of the L. And we have the elevator and staircase, and also towards the back end we have another fire escape staircase. Next slide, please. So this is the ground floor. Now the ground floor has the retail space, which is all the white area. The shaded area, that's more for the residential units. So we talked about the lobby earlier. That would be the lobby with a staircase, separate staircase that goes into the parking garage. And then the other side is another staircase that will take you upstairs, second and third floor. The elevator is right there in the center, and then we showed you the lobby. Then back staircase, that's for emergency on the back end. There's about 11,000 square feet on the ground level. That's not all the commercial space. The commercial leasable space, if you want to call it that, is just about 9,000 square feet. To the left, you have the driveway. It's like an alcove that you won't be able to see from the street, but when the garage door opens, that's what you would see. That only takes up from from the ground level. Second and third story, they'll have apartments in that area, and you'll see that in the next slide. So this is our unit mix right here. We have 7 2-bedroom apartments and 1 1-bedroom apartment per story. They're going to be mirror images, but I'll just go through this. This is the second floor right here. It's smaller. It's smaller than the first floor, the ground floor. Probably 1,000 square feet less. Our units are 1,100 square feet, give or take, for our 2 bedrooms. There are 2 bedrooms with a master suite, 2 baths. They have all the modern amenities that you would expect from a modern apartment, open floor layout. The front corner apartment is probably my favorite. It gets a view from the street and from the other side. There is 1 1-bedroom unit per story on the second and third floor. And that would have just 1 bathroom, but a master suite. That one is about 850 square feet. So the total is 10,000 square feet. We have about 20% circulation for hallways, staircases, and lobby areas. So next slide, please. So this is just a mirror image. This is the third floor. It's a mirror image of the second floor. So in total we have 14 2-bedrooms at about 1,100 square feet each, 2 1-bedrooms at about 850 to 900 square feet. Pretty much all have balconies, central AC, laundry hookups, anything that you would expect in a modern unit. Next slide, please. So if we could zoom in just a little bit, just to give you an idea of the elevations we have. We're allowed 40 feet height in this zone. We are just about 35 feet high for the overall roof lines, 35 feet high. Some areas pop up another 2.5 feet, but overall we're at 35 feet high. That's the front of the building. And if you want to show, the sides and the back, please. And again, we reincorporated, we incorporated some glass windows into those as part of the zoning process. Very good. The next slide, I believe we're going to be turning it over to you, Kevin, to go through some site plan. We have 4 more slides, and Kevin will take you through the nitty gritty with the site plan. Go ahead, Kev.
Thank you, Syed. Again, my name is Kevin Riopel. I'm with DGT Associates, the project civil engineer. I'd like to just take you guys through the site layout and where we are with the design as we've moved through both conservation and ZBA. You can see highlighted here in blue, there's an off-site wetland just to the north of the property, which triggered our filing with conservation. So we had to be sensitive to the conservation restrictions, amounts of pavement on the site, what we're doing with the stormwater, etc. As you guys all saw in the renderings, we have 2 curb cuts here. The left-hand curb cut again goes to the below-grade garage. The right-hand curb cut goes to the surface parking, as well as the big T turnaround area, and I'll touch on that in a minute. As Syed said, there are 32 spaces in the below-grade garage and 18 parking spaces on the surface here. Excuse me, the 2 curb cuts, we will be filing with Mass DOT eventually for the curb cut permits with them. However, we did meet with them preliminarily. We wanted to get their feedback as to what they would be looking for. So what we're showing here with these nice big wide radii is what Mass DOT is going to want to see when we ultimately get there with the filing. Moving on to stormwater. Let's talk about fire trucks briefly. Through the ZBA process, we work closely with the Walpole Fire Department. Their main concern was being able to get the large tower truck onto the site and turned around so they don't have to back out onto Main Street. So what that evolved into is what you see here and what we're currently proposing. So the big fire truck can come into the site, they'll pull in behind the building, they'll back up into this little alcove here, and then from there they can turn their vehicle out. They were actually very happy to know that they can get their big vehicle in here and turn around on site without having to back out onto Main Street. That was kind of a critical design point. So while this may look like a big sea of pavement here, it's there for a very specific and necessary reason. And at the request of the fire department, this will be signed and striped for no parking, no loading, no anything. This is to remain open at all times. The only other thing back here is a fenced-in dumpster enclosure. So now as I move forward to stormwater management. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the site. There is really just a lot of pavement and a lot of building out there right now. Currently, about half of the site flows uncontrolled and untreated out to the street, impacting the state's drainage system, while the back half of the site flows uncontrolled and untreated to the wetland area. What we're doing is we're controlling all of the new paved areas, all of the new building area, treating the runoff from the paved surfaces and putting it into an underground recharge facility. What that does is we're going to promote groundwater recharge, put nice clean runoff back into the groundwater table with an overflow that will be released back out to the wetland. Without boring everybody with all sorts of nitty-gritty drainage design calculations and details, we are reducing all of the flows out to the street. When we spoke with Mass DOT, they were very happy to hear that. And likewise with conservation, we're reducing the flows out to the wetland. What flows are going to the wetland are nice clean runoff. And finally, just to touch briefly on the other utilities for the site, we will be providing a gas service to the building. We'll also be providing a sewer service for both the commercial and residential units in the building. And then likewise, a domestic water service and a fire protection water service to the building. That really concludes my spiel about the site and the utilities. If Syed, if you don't have any other comments or concerns you want to address now.
I mean, I'll just add, just so that we know, when we went through the zoning process, one of the number one goals I had, and I spoke about this with Lucio, my architect, and Kevin. I didn't want any variances. We want to work with the zoning bylaw in every way, shape, and form. This is probably the 7th or 8th design that we've had for this building to make sure that we respected the zone, the buffer zone, the 100-foot buffer zone. You can see that we don't have any building construction. We do have parking lot in that area, but we didn't have to, bother with the buffer zone whatsoever there. So that was very important to me. The other thing is we respected all the zoning requirements for coverage, height restrictions, the parking requirements. We followed everything. So there is no variances involved with the special permit that we received from the zoning board. So the only thing that stands out when you look at our site plan is the impervious surface. We're pushing it to the 70% limit, but that's mainly because we went back and forth a lot with the fire department on that fire engine turnaround. It's a very big apparatus, but we went back and forth with Paul Barry several months to make sure that we perfected it and make sure it was perfect. He wanted it to be completely paved. They did not want any permeable pavers or anything like that. So we had to extend it out, and that's why you see a lot of dates on our plans, because we just had to keep revising them. But in the end, we did go back to conservation. They do understand what we're doing with that turnaround and made sure that was completely paved. So we had to kick it out on the right a little bit more and allowed to drive in a little bit behind the building. So all that's paved for a very specific reason, and we're pleased with that. I believe the fire department expressed, that they're happy with that fire engine turnaround. So that's the only thing that I'm not crazy about, but it's there for a purpose. Other than that, all of our limits we're well below all the limits on all the zoning requirements. I'll turn it back to you, Mr. Chairman, if there's any questions. We're all here for any questions you might have.
All right, thank you. I'll read the comments that I have. First one from the Concom, dated January 7th. Conservation issued an order conditions on the Wetlands Protection Act bylaw on June 4th. The plan reference from DG Associates was dated April 15th, 2020. Next one was, I believe I lost it. Oh, the one from Paul Barry. Bear with me. That's not it. That's not it. That's not it. And found it. Buried. From January 19th, from Paul Berry, Deputy Chief. The Fire Department has reviewed the site plan and notes the following. The apparatus turning analysis movement complies with Mass State Fire, and if approved, they require roadway markings stating fire lane, no parking. We're required by the AHJ, approved signs, roadway surface and markings will be provided to identify the fire department access and to prohibit parking in the turnaround area. The turn radius between both peninsulas will have to be 100% snow removal. They request that in the rental lease agreements prohibiting grills on the balconies. Once again, Paul goes beyond, but it's common sense. What I will say is you're not supposed to have grills on balconies. And that would be a good thing to have in lease. I have apartments, I do the same thing. Next thing is he wants the applicant to submit a drawing showing the proposed sprinkler room and fire department connection. Just for your information, anybody listening, is we don't control the building codes. I'm sure this will come up at your building design time. And my suggestion is, since he wants it, and before you get your final plans, I would go see Paul again. And he said he wants to work with the applicant regarding the parking garage ventilation. Once again, that's under building code situation, but I know what they're talking about for all the carbon monoxides. They want to work with you regarding the unit number and addresses. I'm not sure what your final address is going to be, but how they're going to handle that. And that will be probably when you do your final plans and get your building permit. And they always request multiple key boxes, lock boxes, and with a master key system, and that's pretty standard in the town. So it appears that Mr. Barry is satisfied with the turnaround. He has a bunch of items that he'll catch you guys when you do your final plans. The next comment I have, and the only other comment regarding this, is from Kyle Balva, our town engineer. And Kyle's turn.
Mr. Chairman, Carl Baldoff, Town Engineer, and I'll understand we issued our letter today, actually later in the afternoon today. We've got 4 pages, 29 comments on there. I will say that the applicant and the engineer did an excellent job of summarizing the site design. We have technically strong plans here and a very good submission. Nevertheless, we have things that we want. I'm going to paraphrase some of my comments, Mr. Chairman, if you will. Or summarize them, but in the beginning, the very first comment recommends we get a cover sheet on this with the requirements outlined in the site plan review section for locus maps, etc. The whole idea and applicant information, the whole idea is to make this thing be consistent with other site plans that have been approved and get it in a form where the board can endorse it. That includes putting an endorsement block on. Those things aren't currently on the plan set. We also commented on the addresses. We are the keepers of the addresses in town, and we have, I believe, 4 addresses at this site. We do not have 1391, and so we concur also with fire department and said that has to be what's there now. I won't say that it's irrelevant, but we need to make sure we get on the same page with addresses when this is complete. There's a major comment, actually, on the first, shows up on the comment 3 on the existing conditions plan. There's another water main available to this site that's not shown on the project plans. And it's on the site side, basically in the sidewalk, and it's a 12-inch main, and that's the one we want them to connect to, and not to the 6-inch, which is across the street. It's not often that we get to make a comment that will make life easier, but this one will. They will not have to go across the street for the water. So we've asked that that gets added on to the existing conditions. And then we also reference it in the site layout plans or the site utilities plans, and ask that the fire services and water service be connected. We go on sheet CE1 and try to clarify. We like all the zoning summary information in one spot. So when you look at the plan, you get the parking, you get the zoning summary together. We have made some comments about the accessible curb cuts on site and out in the state highway layout. Ultimately, the state access permit will govern what happens in the state highway layout. It's not the town road, but we comment on it anyway. And also some consistency of curbing on site. We go on to the grading and drainage plan with comment 11 and ask for some spot grades on the dumpster pad and in the corners of the parking lots. And actually, there was an error in those comments. Sheet 12 also says grading and drainage. But on comment 13, we go on to the site utility plan and make some recommendations that a sewer manhole be installed on the sewer service to assist in case there's any problems in that. Some bollards around the gas service, those type of things. We also make a comment, this design has to have a pump station for stormwater that goes down the driveway into the parking garage. It cuts it off and it's too low for the drainage system. That's where Mr. Riopel is pointing where the car is going down. There's a grate there, catches the stormwater, and it's got to pump it up to the drainage system. So we've made some comments about that, where it's designed, where it's located, completing some information on the drawings, making sure that somewhere convenient There's an emergency light that notes if it's not working, it can be seen quite easily by many because it's kind of vital. So we have some comments. That's all on the site utilities plan. We further go on to make some comments on the details with the handicap accessible signs and some other comments, including a snow manhole and things like that. And we continue to make comments about the stormwater lift station, trying to make sure that it will sit in the water table and we don't want it to float, so we've asked for some anti-flotation, things like that. So that's about it. We very rarely comment on architecturals, and at the end of the memorandum, we put in some special items. If the board were to be inclined, they could include that in their decision, and a lot of it has to do with obtaining Mass DOT access permits. And I glanced over in between writing this and now I checked and said one of the comments would be redundant to conditions by the Board of Appeals. They also recognize, probably at our recommendation, that you would need access permits from Mass DOT. So everyone understands there's going to be 2 access permits here. One for the curb cuts. The applicant will be the Mass DOT will grant that directly to the applicant. There is going to be another access permit for the town-owned utilities in the roads, and that permit will be granted to the town. That would be for the water and sewer connections. And I've asked that we get everything in on one plan, discontinuing the existing services, putting the new ones in. The gas connection will probably be excluded because gas company handles that, but we want all that in on one permit. The town's going to apply, but the applicant and their engineers need to do the legwork. They need to draw the plans, show the baseline stations on the plans, do the traffic management plans, get all that ready, and there's some other requirements as well for bonding and insurance from the contractor. So all those things they essentially have to do for us, and we'll be the applicant, or it's actually a process where they can co-apply with us, but that's in the town's name. So that's the general gist of our letter. But once again, I emphasize that they've done a good job here, and we got things to be changed in the special permit process. So this is a good compromise, and we feel strongly that this will be put together very well by the applicant in a couple of meetings or however long it takes.
Are you all set, Carl?
Yep.
I would like to say before I turn it over to my board members, I found one stapled to something else. It was the Board of Health on their meeting of January 6th. They voted to approve, and they indicated that they recommend that they work with the conservation on the wetlands and mosquito control and promote health. They indicated they'd like to see some bike racks, and that was from the Board of Health on the 6th of January, and that is the only other response I have. So that being said,
Jack, before you go on, I'm sorry to interrupt. Did you read the sewer and water one?
no. What's the date? Oh, do you mean the one that's a year old?
Oh, it's a year old. Forget it.
Yeah, no, I saw that. It's
Okay.
we
Sorry.
sent it back out, and I assume they've gone through the whole thing, so I don't know why else we have to. Yeah. So I assume that's all been taken care of before, or we would have got something. And these did go out recently once we fired this back up. Okay, so who's at the top? John? Your questions, comments?
I know you pointed out that the open ground limit was pushed kind of tightly. Looking at the plans myself, it does seem like an awful lot of the square footage of the lot is covered by impervious surface. What I'd like is if that measurements can be reviewed again, just to ensure that you fall below the 70% maximum limit. The other issue is the special permit you got from zoning for the split use has a requirement that the amount of residential areas be no more than 2 times the amount of the commercial areas. and I think you might be a little above the 2%, in which case, the 20%, yeah, the 2 times, the 20, I'm sorry, let me think. The double, the 2%, 2 times the amount. I think you may be a little bit above that from what I've looked at, unless the second and third floors are in fact somewhat smaller than what's below it, because you have the square where the entrance is, that probably wouldn't be counted as gross floor area for your commercial area. So that may affect your calculations. If that's really just an entrance and not commercial space. So you may need to review that, see if you still meet it. If not, you may need to go back to zoning to adjust your plan for that slight variance you may not meet. And there was one issue on the garage plan. You can call that up. As you enter from the outside, you have several sections in front of you and then a lot off to your right. The question is, can you easily make that turn and get into that right section with a full-size car? Is that an issue? Is the retaining wall going to create an issue there? Something your engineer may want to look at. That's it for now.
Okay.
Hey, I just wanted to respond to John, because something did come up during our special permit regarding what we're allowed for the second and third floor as far as residential. For some reason in the zoning bylaw, there's 2 different zones that discuss this exact situation that we're in right now. We talked in detail during the zoning process that was very important. That was the heart and soul of what we were trying to get approved. In the CBD zone, they calculate, I'll just read it right out of the zoning bylaw. It says, within the CBD zone, the area used for dwelling units above the ground floor shall not exceed a gross floor area of 3.5 times the total gross floor area of the dedicated to commercial use space. On our zone, we're in the B zone. It's different, and for some reason we kept getting them confused because they do exist in Walpole, but they're different zones, and I don't know why it's written that way. But we fall under the B zone, and in the B zone, it says in the zoning bylaw, the area used for dwelling units above the ground floor shall not exceed a gross floor area of 2 times the gross floor area of the ground floor, and that's important because for some reason it refers to the ground floor in the B zone. And we're well within the bounds in that sense. If you were to look at it in the sense of the commercial space, first floor, we're allowed 2 times that, then we might have a discussion about that. But even with that, I think we should be okay. I think we've done the math on that. But that wouldn't apply to our zone. That goes with the central business, with all those buildings that are going on in the center. It falls under their zoning. They specifically refer to the commercial space first floor, and they don't want more than 3.5 that amount in residential. For us, it just refers to the ground floor. So our ground floor is 11,000 and change. Our second floor is 10,000, and then the third floor is 10,000 and change. So we're well below what the ground floor is. So we're allowed a maximum of 2 times the 11,000, or if you want to subtract anything, whatever else is going on the ground floor. But the ground floor is 11,000 and change, and the second floor is 10 and 10 on the third. So we're good with that, and I'm glad you brought that up. It has been brought up many times. That's like the heart and soul of this whole project. But we did get relief for that. We didn't get relief for it. We did not need relief for that. But that's the confusion there, and I don't know why the zoning bylaws ran that way, but that's where that confusion comes from. I hope that clears that up. And we will take a look at the turning radius and the parking garage to make sure we can get cars around there.
One follow-up question while we're talking the garage. It looks like on the garage plan that a portion of the garage actually extends below the entrance area. Is that correct?
That is correct. That's where the driveway goes in on the right side, goes to the above ground parking, the surface parking. You do drive above 3 or 4 parking spaces that are underneath.
Carl, I don't know, does that have any engineering impact or anything that you need to look at to make sure there's nothing, I'm not sure. A heavy fire truck may be an issue, I'm not sure. I'm sure it must be something that the engineers take care of when they examine it, but I just noticed that and I thought it might be something that someone needs to look at.
Mr. Chair, through you, yes, of course, naturally it has an impact. That's going to be in the architectural design, and it's generally something that we don't look at, but that is obviously going to be able to have to be designed to carry structural loads and whatnot that are normal. Well, I don't know if parking garages underneath parking lots are very common certainly in Walpole, but anyway, yes, it'll have implications. I don't know if we're going to be the ones that look at it or not. It'll probably go through the building department.
Thank you.
All right, moving on. Next up, just below, Katie.
Do you have any plans? So when you pull in off of Main Street into the above ground parking, do you have any plans to somehow put arrows or something to designate that it's two-way? So
we can definitely.
What I'm trying to say is, if you're coming down, you're not familiar with the area, and you see the 2 curb cuts, you could pull, past the first one, think you can pull into the second one. Do you know what I'm saying? So I thought it might be a good idea of just simple arrows on the ground, or I thought signage might get a little cluttered there because you don't have a whole lot of open space. So I think you should somehow just consider something there.
That's a very good point. It would avoid confusion if you do have a flash on the ground there. At least it'll tell the driver, hey, come in from here, at least something. And I do agree, I would rather have it on the ground than have a sign in the landscape. But yeah, that's definitely something we should incorporate in there. We'll make sure we put that on there.
And then in regard to the garage itself, I was a little, I had comments, and then today I received the zoning board decision and saw those. And can you just clarify? So one of my questions was going to be, is the door going to remain closed? How will people access it? Is it going to be that they have, a clicker or something like that? Because obviously it's just for residents. But then when I read the decision of the zoning board, they had something in there about police, if it became a problem, the way I interpret it was if it became a problem, the police could mandate it remain open. Can you just clarify what your plans are for that door, how it will be, how people will access it, and if you could, your version of their comment?
That did come up again in the zoning board. The door will be accessed by the tenants of the building, residents, or maybe business owners. It's tailored to the people that are living there or have a business there. It's not really for the public. So they would have a clicker to go in there. The main concern that came up with the zoning board was, let's say you have 5 or 6 cars queued and they all want to go into the parking garage. It causes an issue on the street. If you're sitting there waiting for the door to open and close and all that. If that becomes an issue, the zoning board said, and that was one of the provisions that you're talking about, they said that they would give the authority to the police to mandate or just say that the door has to stay open between certain hours. Let's say if they feel between 3 and 5, for example, you got a lot of clutter, a lot of cars trying to get in there, and it's causing an issue on the street, then that would be something that the police could override the building management and say, yes, you need to leave that door open at this time. We're okay with that. Obviously, we don't want any issues on the street. It's very rare that you would have that many cars queuing in to go in to, it's just a 16 unit. But in the rare event that it does occur, we're okay with having to leave the door open. That way the cars can just trickle into the basement. But our main concern is overnight. Yeah, for the security of the building, the door should be closed, and we're not going to have traffic issues overnight.
Okay. Now you said it could be for the commercial clients also, the people who lease the space. Now, isn't I was under the impression there were 2 spots in the garage per residential unit. Am I interpreting that incorrectly? Are there spots for the commercial units also in the garage?
Well, they're not, zoning doesn't say that we have to designate the parking spaces for residential or for commercial use. It just so happened that we ended up with 32 in the garage, and it just corresponds to that 16 units that's above. But that the residential tenants can park outside. It's just the overall project, what it requires for parking. The commercial requires 18 and the residential is 32. So you can use them any way you want. But for the sake of the security of the building and the residents of the building, it makes sense, given that we have sufficient parking outside for the commercial space. We have 8,900 square feet commercial space. That would require 18 parking spaces. We have that above grade. So that's where the whole splitting of the parking might come into play later on, but it's not a requirement. We could leave the door open, and I mean, theoretically, you could have customers park downstairs if you really want to, but we have sufficient parking above ground to suffice for our commercial customers.
Okay.
And that's why.
That was my next question. So when you show the plan, you show the commercial area all wide open. How many spots do you foresee breaking that into? Do you have any idea what your plan is inside there? How many rental units, commercial rental units you will have inside?
It's an open floor right now, and they'll subdivide as needed. The thing is, a lot of things have changed in the past year with COVID. People's needs have changed. I haven't been approached by anybody for any specific retail business. We're just waiting to see what happens with the retail world, really. But as this year's gone on, I felt more and more that you might have people who want to rent an apartment and have an office, a professional office there. So we're allowed in the zoning to have offices in that first floor. That's where it's going, I feel. More like having people renting units upstairs and their offices there, like a law firm or real estate office or something like that. And that would relax the pressure on the parking. Sometimes I feel that, I know zoning requires 18 parking spaces. Sometimes I feel that it's not enough, depending on what type of business you're opening there. So that's something where we're going to have to balance it as a management on the property to see what makes sense. The last thing we want is the congested parking lot and businesses that just don't make sense together. So a lot of uses are allowed in the B zone. It's incredible. It's a very generous zone, as I like to say. But we have to tame it in some ways and figure out what works best with our parking situation, with the apartments. But in light of COVID, I've seen a lot of people working at home, and not everybody really likes to work in their house, in their apartment, but they can just walk downstairs and have an office space where they can entertain clients or whatever they have. So that's where I feel it's going. Obviously, again, the business zone offers a lot of uses. I don't want to rule out anything, but that's where I feel it makes sense at this point.
Okay.
Syed, if I could just jump in, because of the only 18 parking spaces, there's not enough parking to entertain a restaurant establishment in the commercial space. I think that's worth noting that, it won't be a Starbucks or coffee shop. We just don't have enough parking for that type of a use on the first floor there.
Yeah, and obviously like drive-throughs and things like that, just it won't work at the site, and our side setback and so forth. Yeah, it's just not going to work. But they are allowed uses, but it's something that you're going to have to deal with as it comes along. But I don't see that happening.
Okay. So I don't know if I missed it, but I didn't see the snow removal, the snow storage, what your plow plan is on the plans. Did I miss it? Was it right in front of me?
I'm not sure if you saw there on the plans or not.
It's not on the plans on the screen here. It was included as part of our stormwater report that was reviewed by Carl. Essentially, we're designating this whole area out in the back area for snow storage. Fire department's requiring that these 2 islands remain clear just for overhang and swing, so there will be no snow storage there, obviously. But then again, the front landscape area here and in the front in this area here. It is limited.
Somewhere on the plan, so, notate it.
Yes, I have that plan in my report. I can certainly pull that out and,
For the next revision would be.
yeah, no, we can include that, absolutely.
Do you plan on having any signage, any building sign, just a number? What are you thinking?
We don't have any building signage planned just yet. Again, it's going to go back to who's going to occupy that retail space. There is a sign, the billboard at the property, and
Yes.
If you want, I can elaborate a little bit on what's going to happen with that, because I did mention that to the chairman earlier. That came up during our special permit process. The previous owner of the property signed a 10-year lease with Clear Channel, and that happened in 2018 or 2019. So I can't break that lease. Our new building is set back 25 feet, so it doesn't block it. So it's okay to stay as far as their lease is concerned. But we did come to an agreement that once that lease is up, that billboard will be coming down, and that will. We have an exact date in our special permit conditions. We had it written right here: existing billboard on property to be removed no later than December 31st, 2029.
Okay.
So another 7 or 8 years, we will take that down. It just doesn't make sense with our site. It defeats the purpose of what we're doing. You know, you want to see the nice building, you don't want to see that billboard. They don't come together. But we're in that situation. After the building does go up, hopefully, you know, the next few years, we'll just have another 4 or 5 years to deal with it, and
Okay.
we'll get it out of there.
So I did, I did notice zoning board mentioned something in one of their meetings, and I don't know where you stand with it and what your plan is, but there is no crosswalk. And if I'm not mistaken, the closest crosswalk, it's down quite a bit. And I believe you guys had commented that you would have to deal with the state.
Gregory?
But I was wondering if
You know me, technological wizard. I'm watching the Walpole Planning Board meeting on Zoom, Schwartz and Bigliano. Yeah, and they're discussing the property right next door to the car wash right now.
Oh, the speed up.
Yeah, well, they got a plan in front of them to knock down that.
Excuse me,
Mr. Martin,
I don't know who's talking, but please mute yourself. We're trying to conduct a meeting.
Not up on the whole thing, but it's gonna be 16 residents.
Hello? Can you hear me?
And then,
Hello?
is he yelling at me?
Yes. Mute yourself, please.
I'm sorry, I gotta go.
Oh my God.
All right, next meeting, I'm getting a mute button.
the owner of the meeting should be able to mute Jack, so,
I know, I don't have that. I got a gavel.
yeah. There, he's muted. Please continue.
So how are you doing with that crosswalk?
Kevin, it was a condition. I'll read the condition that they gave us for the special permit, and then I'll have Kevin elaborate on what we may need to do. But it's important to read the because it took some time wording it to make sure that we got it right. Yeah, the board has expressed its concern regarding the potential for tenants or visitors of the project to attempt to walk across Route 1A to access businesses or other activities on the opposite side of Route 1A. The board recognizes that Route 1A and its associated right-of-way is under the jurisdiction of the Mass DOT, and therefore, the board cannot require the construction or installation of a crosswalk to accommodate such pedestrian traffic. However, the board expects that the applicant will work with Mass DOT to evaluate potential locations for safe pedestrian passage across Route 1A for tenants or visitors of the building located at 1363 Main Street. And to the extent Mass DOT requires installation of such a crosswalk, the applicant shall pay for all costs for the crosswalk, associated signage, and lighting. We have spoken to Mass DOT preliminarily. It is their road. We were more than willing to help and work if there is a spot somewhere near our site. I'm going to have Kevin take over because he'll be able to explain it in the technical detail that he actually talked to them about. Kevin?
So just to reference, the purple square here is the site. The nearest crosswalk and the what would be northerly direction is at the intersection here at Norfolk Street. And then as you move south, there's not another one until the big power line overpass further down the road here. Let me just get to my sheet real quick. So this was a big discussion topic, both with ZBA and Mass DOT when we spoke to them preliminarily. There is a sidewalk on the project side of the street right here. Unfortunately, there isn't a sidewalk on the opposite side of the street for quite some distance. While DOT recognized the want for it, it's not as simple as let's just get a crosswalk across the street at our site. DOT alluded to the fact that they're going to have to kind of study a portion of this roadway between the two existing crosswalks. Because there is a lack of a sidewalk on this side, we could put a crosswalk, but a crosswalk to nowhere isn't in anybody's best interest. It's not safe from a pedestrian standpoint. Route 1A is also a very busy road too, which they recognize. So it's going to require a lot more study by Mass DOT to find an optimal location for a crosswalk across the road. It may not necessarily be on our 150 feet of property here. So that's something they want to look into from their respect.
All right, my concern was if you have 2-bedroom units, you're likely to have kids in at least a couple of them. And, you know, crossing the street to go to Cumberland Farms, you know, a kid takes their life in their hands trying to cross there. So if there's anything you can figure out, I think it would be a benefit. I really do.
It was the number one concern that we had during our zoning process. It was the number one concern because someone did get killed, I believe, down the street from there. So we take it very seriously. It's just where we are, if the only sidewalk space that we have is in the dead center of our property, and that would discharge on the other end of the street into a driveway at Bristol. That's the challenge with our site. Will it work, you know, further down the street? Maybe, but you know, how far is it going to be from our site that it's actually going to benefit our site? There is one down, you know, if they're going to Cumberland, you might, if they do decide to stay on that side of the road and walk all the way down, they might be able to cross at Norfolk Street. People always tend to just cross the street immediately, and that's where the problem you're going to run into is. If we can get it in on our site, we're all for it. We're all for it. So as we go forward, we'll talk to DOT, and if there's something that we can do, we're 100% on board. We're 100% on board. As I told this, the zoning board, you know, I say the same thing here. Whatever we can do in that sense to help, we will make it happen.
Okay, thank you.
No
I'm all
problem.
set, Jack.
Yep,
Thanks,
all
Katie.
set. Okay, you guys didn't want to do a Starbucks, huh?
No, I think we got good coffee next door. We're good.
No, I just happened to notice somebody who's watching very intently and see if I can get his little microphone to shake. Right, Billy? All right, moving on to next, Sarah.
Okay, thanks. So one thing, the first thing that I'll mention, I just noticed that Carl had mentioned also, but if you could please provide a cover sheet for the set, and it outlines in the bylaw what we need on that cover sheet. We need the nature and location of the project, the legal description, dimensions, zoning classifications, assessor's map and lot numbers, name and address of property owner and applicant, and a locus plan. So if you could add that. And a lot of my questions have kind of been mentioned already, but I did also have a question that you note the size, type, and location of all signs. So it sounds like you don't have a whole lot of plans. However, you know, that's part of what we're going to approve. So if you think there's going to be a sign for one or more of those businesses, then we really kind of need to see where that is and the dimensions, make sure that it complies with all the rules and regulations, and the postings, make sure that that's all fine. And then I don't know if you could bring up the rendering, like as you're in the parking lot and you're looking to the side of that building. more deeper into the parking lot. Yeah, so there. So, you're not planning to have any signs to tell people where's the entrance to the residence and where's the entrance to the commercial? Or is that space in the commercial that's only for employees, or that's a main entrance into the commercial space? This one where you have the people there?
Yeah, that would be a main entrance to go into the, that's for the staircase, the emergency exit for the residential units above.
Okay,
The storefronts, depending on how they get subdivided, the storefronts would have doors in them. It wouldn't change the look that you see. It would just be a glass door. The far left, that would have labeling on the glass that would say this is residential. It would be locked. Whoever's going in there, lives in one of the apartments. That's exclusively the residential lobby.
okay. So basically the main entrance and the only entrance into the commercial space is around the front off of Main Street.
Depending on how, because it's just an open floor right now. So depending on how we subdivide it, I would assume that the front would have there's two entrances that you can see there with the walkways. You could have two storefronts up front. We do have a emergency exit behind that you saw inside that L shape near the lobby for the residential. There is an exit there. So that half can be one commercial space. The other half can be another commercial space. It all depends on the nature of the businesses that get in there. But they have two entrances in the front. The businesses in the rear, which might be offices or something like that, you would have to go in from those storefronts that you see there. There would just be a glass door that they could enter in.
Okay. Well, if you could, come up with like an approximate sign that would be used, and we can just put it on the plan so that we all know that.
That's a good point. We might. Again, what's complicating is that we have that big billboard there. And it's tough to envision another little board below it. But now that you bring it up, I think we should incorporate a sign that we can have like all the businesses labeled on it. It doesn't have to be a huge sign, but that's something that Kevin can look into. Maybe we should put something out there that we can actually put in offices or something like that, just so that they're labeled out on the street. That would probably be best located right below where that billboard is. And eventually the billboard won't be there, so it'll just be our signage.
Yeah, but if you were to have, a sign on the facade of the building, or as needed, I mean that's a sell, I would imagine, for whatever commercial space you want to put in there, that they want people to be able to find them, right? So
I guess what we could do is designate spots on the walls that we would put potential signage for that business that would be in that storefront.
Okay.
So,
and then include a detail in the set so that we can see the dimensions. Yeah.
Okay, we can definitely work on that. That's a very good point. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, and then I had on my list an update from the ZBA, but we got that decision today. I haven't had a chance to fully go through that, so I will do that for the next meeting.
There's a lot of things on there that I think you guys would be interested in that pertain to site plan, really. We had several months with zoning, so we were able to hash out a lot of details. So I'm happy with the work we did there.
Okay, good. Okay, one request. Can you identify on the plans where the frontage is shown? And can you add that to the zoning circle or the zoning chart?
Yep, it is right here, 150 feet.
Okay.
But again, when we create this cover sheet, we're gonna make sure that all of that information is shown, right on the plan.
Okay. 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 And can you pull up the sheet where you had the ground floor and you had the notation 11,174? Yes. Okay. So can you tell me, what does that 11,000 represent?
The 11,000 represents the whole ground floor, the footprint, if you want to call it that, the footprint.
Okay. Okay, and then, on the plans and in the economic impact statement, you have lower numbers and both of them are slightly different, right around the 9,000 mark.
Yeah, the commercial, leasable commercial space is right around 8,900 square feet. So the leasable commercial space, that wouldn't include that residential lobby, I believe.
Okay,
So the
Okay.
residential lobby and the staircase take out from that footprint.
okay. So, so I agree with what you had said about, you know, the residential above has to be less than 2 of the whole ground floor. However, when you look at parking, is determined according to the gross floor area. It's not the commercial space.
Are you talking about the parking area?
The minimum number of spaces
The minimum number of spaces for commercial or for residential?
for the commercial.
The commercial, it's, they require, I believe in the zoning, I can look it up for you right now. 500 square feet of retail space, requires one parking space. So the 9,000 would require 18.
Yeah, so you have on the, it's like sheet CE-01, and you have the parking, and you also noted retail space, and so you put 8,870 square foot of gross floor area, okay? And then you have the minimum and the maximum, which is correct, and I would agree with that assessment of the bylaw. However, it doesn't say that parking is required only for the commercial space. It says it's required for, according to the gross floor area of the ground floor. So if that 11,000 is the area of the ground floor, then that would require 23 spaces, not 18.
All right, I'll just give me one moment. I'll
Okay.
read it right here.
It's not to say that it, you know, it has to be a deal breaker. It's maybe something
Yeah, I mean,
to
it's.
look into, but
I think the intent of the bylaw is just to provide parking for the actual commercial space that's being used, not the driveway that goes into the basement or the lobby area that, you know, that lobby area doesn't require parking. The intent of the bylaw is just to have enough parking for the retail commercial space demand for parking.
sure, but it is there, you know, the gross floor area. So if you could.
Okay, yeah, we'll take a look into that.
Okay. And then just one question, also on the parking lot, where you transition from the 10-foot wide space to the first 9-foot wide space, right there at the corner of the building.
Mhm.
So that first 9-foot space has an aisle width of 24 feet,
Yes.
where 26 is required. Which you have on all the others, but just that one space.
Okay, let me look at the aisle.
Yeah. Good catch.
Should I pause or keep going? I just have a few others.
Yeah, keep going.
Okay.
We'll note them, we'll get back to you on it.
Okay, and then just to reiterate what Katie had said, we'd like to see on the plans any pavement markings that you're planning to add. So to her point, at the entrance, if you're gonna, mark that, this is for a parking lot, or, one way, or, the line where to separate the flow of traffic. In the back, if you're going to have no parking, we need to see that on the plan, the pavement markings. Okay, and looking on this sheet as well, up a little bit in the sheet on the zoning chart, under the building height, I don't know if you could, yeah. So that, yeah, right there, it refers to sheet C2. I don't have a sheet C2.
Sorry, it should say CE02.
CE02.
Yeah, that would be referencing the grading plan.
Okay. Okay. Okay, and back to the parking, if you could show that you've supplied the required 10% of landscaped space within the parking area. Okay. And this is maybe a suggestion for the board. As you're talking about, you're not sure what type of business you'll put there. Perhaps we should add a condition that whatever business goes in there complies with the parking code 4. Okay. And also just I think Carl had mentioned on the zoning chart, if you could note that you're in business district. And I think this is my last thing. You mentioned that you're not asking for any waivers, but I think you're asking for a traffic study waiver.
Yes, I'm not sure if we need a traffic study on this one, or it should be under a 500 count, I think, per day.
Yeah, I think it's
Yeah.
reasonable, but that should be noted on the plans as well.
Okay.
And yes, just one other thing. If you could please provide on one of the sheets the surrounding parcels and the owners of all those parcels. And I think that's it. Thank you.
All right, Phil?
Most of my my questions have been covered, but I do have a few. I do want to first say that I think it's a good project. I applaud you for your water storage plan. Get most of the water back to the ground. So that's good, and it certainly would be good for the for the neighborhood, a new building like that with a mixture of apartments and retail. So that's good. I do share with a lot of the concerns that have been already mentioned, but I do want to just reiterate, the sidewalk, the crossing, and I just think this shows that, not just you, but the town, getting the state to help us get our streets in the business areas more friendly for pedestrians, for businesses like this. And unfortunately, it's a very slow process, but it is good that you're working with them, and hopefully that will be resolved. I think that's very important. We do want to promote more people, walking, and here's some apartments that aren't that far from the center of town, so that's good. One question is on where you show the wetland, and that show, like right here. We do require that you show the date. First of all, did you confirm that with the Conservation Commission? I assume you did.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, so we do require you show the date that you confirmed it with them on the plan.
Okay.
Unless it was somewhere else, but that's one of the requirements.
Okay.
Requirement 13. And then, how many cars could fit in that ramp to the garage? It looked like maybe 2. So if cars are coming to the door.
Yeah, I believe it is 2 spaces before the door.
So it gives a little buffer, but certainly
Yes.
not be a concern. You know, that
And
would be,
two spaces would also afford, to keep the, sidewalk space open. So that would be two spaces essentially from the back of the sidewalk down to the door, or two car lengths.
so certainly that would be, you know, we don't want to have cars waiting on 1A, so, but, you know, it looks like we have a good plan for that. And then the, you know, a lot of things we mentioned, that maybe showing, you know, going back to the parking and the arrows and things, it would be good to show maybe, we often require a plan showing the traffic circulation. You may not need to show the whole thing, but again, just to, you know, to add to that. And the signage, one other thing you might want to think about, if you're going to have a name for the building or just a number, you know, at least that's another sign you could show. You know, maybe you're looking to have something on the building in the front, even before you know what your commercial renters might be. So I think after that, most of the things have been mentioned. You know, I would just reiterate really what people have already mentioned. So I'm good. Thank you.
All right. My only question or comment, it might have been talked about. Coming into the garage, are you gonna have a sign there that says for tenants or building owners only?
I mean, we could put something like that. We didn't have anything like that planned.
Okay, the reason I'm gonna say it is most people drive it idiots.
Yeah.
What you're gonna have somebody who wants to pull in on a rainy day and wants to go in the garage, and if you have a clicker, they don't have the clicker, and all of a sudden you have a big traffic jam there. You know, talk to Garopolis who's watching this. He knows what it's like running a Dunkin' Donuts. That's what's going to happen. You got to have somebody, or Snowy. I don't want to park outside. I want to park underneath, and they can't get in the garage door. Now what do? Then it becomes a problem. You know, yeah, you kind of laugh, but guarantee that will happen.
I'm sure it will.
So you might want to think about, or I would highly suggest you have a sign that says somewhere parking for owners only, and the other side
that makes
parking.
sense.
Yeah, that way you keep them out, because that's going to be your first biggest problem. You're going to have people pulling in there and wanting to go in the garage and get nice and warm, or even someone to the effect of picking somebody up and they can't get in. So that's my biggest one, because that could be a big jam up. Everything else, you know, everybody's covered. My suggestion before I open it up to the anybody in the audience is that you know, what I started out, check back with all the other boards so you have something to talk with us about next time regarding how they want to handle it and how we'll go through like that, and plus everything that our board members and Kyle has brought up tonight. Okay, and that's all I really had. I will open up to the public, and we're going to have an extension of time on this, but before we do that, I will open it up to the public. So if anybody in the public would like to speak, just unmute. No, nobody's unmuting. No questions or comments? Okay. Well, anybody who's watching out there and listening, if you do have a comment, something, you can always email us and we can read it off next time. And actually, we can forward it along to the applicant so that your question is answered by the next hearing, okay? And with that being said, you guys got a little bit of work to do, not only what you can handle with what we had, but also hitting the other boards and stuff. Kate Delaney.
Yes.
When do you think? Oh,
Well, they probably won't be ready February 4th, so
No,
that
we-
will be
no, that's done.
February.
Is there an opening on February 18th by any chance?
Yes.
If we could continue it to February 18th, Mr. Chairman, I think that would give us some time to clear up some of the comments and the concerns of the board.
Yep. Okay. Well, we weren't going to give you 2 weeks anyway, because that doesn't work, because you can't get the stuff back into us within the 15 days. So we'd also, while we're sitting here 2 weeks from now on our next hearing, we'd expect to see your stuff back so it can get out to everybody again, so we have timely responses from our end. So I'll ask for an extension up through the end of February. If you could, Saeed, you could.
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine. I mean, we'll be meeting with you guys February 18th, and but if you need
Yeah, but
extension,
our time, well, before I should ask Kate, when do we run out on
The third.
3rd of February?
Yep, so we need an extension through February 26th.
Mr. Chairman, whatever you guys need for time, that's not our concern. Our concern is about getting it right. If you want, just do an extension right until the end of the month, end of February, February 28th.
That's what we want to do.
Is it the 29th this year? Yeah, we'll do it to the end of February, and then if we need more time, we'll figure it out at that point. But
Okay, but I can't give you an appointment because you're already done by February 3rd. So you have to say, yes, Mr. Chairman, I'd love to give you an extension up through February 29th.
I would love to give you guys an extension through the end of February.
Okay, I'll make a motion to allow the applicant extension up through February 29th. Do I have a second?
28th, Jack.
28th? I thought it was the same 29th.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if it was a 28 or 29 this year.
Oh my God.
I'm glad it's a 28. We don't need any more confusion with COVID and dates.
Okay, up through the 28th. Do I have a second?
Second.
Do we have a second?
Who did that?
Kate?
Kate?
Okay. All right. All those in favor? Phil?
Aye.
I'll go down the list. Jack, aye. John?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Katie?
Aye.
Okay. Now, we'll continue this hearing on February 18th. I assume we got anything on that night? Okay.
Nope.
All right. 7:15.
We'll see you then. I thank you, Mr. Chairman, and
Okay.
all board members for all the
Okay.
feedback.
Thank you.
We'll see you soon. Thank you.
Bye. All right. Now,
Oh,
we're back to, let's see, we did everything. The last item we had tonight was talking about the housing partnership that was received on Tuesday night. We do have an issue that the fact that it's beyond the time, the 48 hours, so I'm not inclined to do anything with it. The only reason is I don't want to jeopardize anything we do because of these time dates. So does anybody have any comments relative to that?
So Jack, you're saying for doing an official notice of the minutes of the meeting agenda? Is that what you're?
Yeah, we got that Tuesday night at 10:15. That's not the 48 hours.
But the agenda item was
No, it was, we had to have something from the housing partnership, which we didn't get until after under the 48 hours, Phil. That's my point. I don't want to open something up. You may think I'm being hard, but I just want to protect, because I don't need someone coming back and whacking me saying, nice going. That's all. I'm not trying to stop anything, but I just don't want to open a can of worms up. I mean, as you've seen what I've done in the past with people with zoning articles and everything else, you don't do it by the actual dates. As much as you want to be nice, you can get your hat handed to you. So that's, what we're faced with tonight.
I guess I was just questioning the fact that the motion was made to discuss the letter, and
Yeah, but the letter we didn't get in time. I mean, what I don't understand is it took so long to get here anyway. But other members, John, what do you feel?
I don't feel it's that big an issue. Well, I suppose we need to, if we don't keep a 48-hour window, we're gonna have to let other people in too. I guess I would say we need the 48-hour window to stay as a fixed time period and hold it for everyone to obey.
Okay. Sarah?
I guess I don't know all the details of when it was received, but I thought that it was on the agenda and posted appropriately, so I'm not sure what the issue is there. So if it's not discussed today, then you propose to add it to the agenda for the next
Of
meeting?
course, yeah, of course, without a doubt. I just don't wanna have an issue, that's all, because you guys know how this has been a bouncing ball around town, so I'm playing on the side of caution, that's all.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not a zoning article, it's a board discussion, but, I guess, like I said, I don't know exactly the dates and times of when the letter was received. But
Well-
if we want to adhere to the 48 and we want to adhere to that for everything, to be fair.
Yeah, well,
fine.
the other reality is if someone wanted to come in and saw that, they wouldn't have seen it on Tuesday. The best they could have seen is if they would have had to come in Wednesday morning, which is within a day of it. So I'm just, emails it made deadlines a lot different than we used to have. So, but no, without a doubt, this will be on the next. Katie?
I think if I'm listening to everything correctly, it's because although Phil got it on the agenda, the actual request from Housing Partnership didn't come in until after.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, so then I think we should move to put it on the next agenda for sure.
Okay. We'll do that very first thing next time on, what are we meeting, the February 4th?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep, okay, all right. Well, that
Now,
being,
Jack, what time do you want to do that? Because Lincoln Estates is continued at 7:30 and El Sarabi is 7:20.
we'll do it before. There's no reason to hold this up. I don't need to do this at the end of the night. It's not fair to the board and to Phil. It should go ahead.
So do you want me to put it at like 7:05?
Yes, yeah, give it a time certain. That way it's done.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, thank you. All right, I'll make a motion to,
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
I'm sorry, did we talk about 100 Elm Street?
didn't I say that? I thought I mentioned that before. Maybe if you didn't,
We did
What?
not. We did not mention that, yeah.
all right, what happened is, I thought I did it when I was rambling. What happened is they had to put on some curb and they had to put on the decision, which they're told to do. And it's gone back and forth. Well, we got the curbs on, but they didn't put the decision on like they're told. Kate had sent him a reminder email yesterday and one today, and the guy had said, oh, I put it in the mail and you should have it maybe overnight today, which we didn't get. So we don't have it yet in our possession. And even if we got it, I mean, you can't have Kyle at 5:05 looking at it. So that's where it stands. I assume that's coming in tomorrow and that will be on the next week.
Okay, all right.
Right? So I think that takes care of everything we have. So
So
All right.
next week, you mean the 4th?
next meeting, yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'll make a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second,
Second from Katie. All those in favor? Kate?
aye.
John?
Aye.
Phil?
Aye.
Sarah?
Aye.
Jack? Aye. Okay, it's a wrap. Thank you.
Good night.
Night.